Good afternoon, colleagues. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Erica McCray. She's the Associate Professor of Special Education and Director of the School of Special Educator, School Psychology, and Early Childhood Studies at the University of Florida. And she's co-director of the Collaboration for Effective Educator Development, Accountability, and Reform, which thankfully has been abbreviated to CEEDAR. And she's here to share with us today those resources that we may be able to apply in the College of Education. And Dr. McCray, genuinely, thank you very much for being here with us today.
Absolutely. And I applaud you for all of those tongue twisters. The name of our school is a tongue twister. We call it Suspects. The name of our center is a tongue twister. So we just stick with CEEDAR, but I applaud you for actually saying them all out. And I definitely thank you all for the invitation to be here. I always enjoy spending time with my friends and colleagues at the University of Memphis. All right, so today I'd like for us to spend a little time. I'll give you some background on the CEEDAR Center, highlight some resources, and give examples of how educator preparation providers are using them with a focus on our culturally relevant educational resources. So our center was funded by the Office of Special Education Programs to support improved outcomes for students with disabilities, but with a focus on the broader professional learning system. So we work to support state teams in reforming their preparation programs, revising licensure standards so that they align with those program improvements, look at how personnel evaluation systems and other data collection mechanisms can provide information to improve preparation as well as standards and licensure, and then making sure that constant realignment is happening. We don't want to be in the business of improving preparation, but then the standards are outdated and don't account for what we're expecting our teachers and leaders to know and be able to do once they go into buildings. We are in our second round of funding. We have been in operation since 2013, and we're housed at the University of Florida, and Mary Brownell is our director. I'll share a little bit more about our process and how we came to be. All right. So our mission, as I said, is to support students with disabilities in achieving college and career-ready standards by building the capacity of state personnel preparation systems to prepare teachers and leaders to implement evidence-based practices within multi-tiered systems of support. And when we think about educator preparation, it's not just special education teachers by title, but knowing that the majority of students with disabilities spend the majority of their time in general ed settings. We want everyone from the school leader to all of the teachers and support personnel in the building to understand what it means to provide a college and career ready education for our students. So preparation, policy, and practice have to work together to get those improved outcomes. Because our charge is relatively large, we were one of the highest funded centers out of the Office of Special Education Programs when we were funded, because OSEP had invested so much time and money in personnel preparation. And then our teachers and our specialists end up in school settings where leaders don't really know how to support them effectively. And so they decided that we need to look at all of these pieces in concert. So teacher and leader preparation, policy to support good preparation and practice, and then the data mechanisms that we need to support that. So our partnership is with the unit between the University of Florida, the Center on Great Teachers and Leaders at AIR, and CCSSO, the Council of Chief State School Officers. And we all bring different expertise to the work, but really thinking about what are all of the policy levers that we need to move in the same direction in order to get the outcomes that we're hoping for. So I keep mentioning our priorities are related to alignment, data collection and use, but also equity and access. And we're looking at those as a way to push forward equitable standards and licensure, preparation program reform, and program evaluation, approval, and or review, because as we know, what gets measured typically gets done. And we want all of those things to be happening across general ed, special ed, and educational leadership. In this map, the states highlighted in blue are states that we've worked with in some capacity. Some we're currently working with in a very active and intensive way, and others we've done ad hoc work for. For instance, Vermont contacted us about an emergency policy change that they wanted support with. We worked with other states to think just about how to change licensure standards for teachers that needed to get into the field relatively quickly without losing the qualifications that they needed to adhere to. And so we work with different states for a range of time. Some of them we've been working with since the very beginning in 2008 or 2013, and others we are just working with. Most recently, Texas and New York are states that are coming on board, realizing that as policy cycles pass, we need to make sure that the other aspects of preparation and practice are adhering to those changes. So if you go to our website, or if you've been to our website, I pulled a screenshot of the drop-down menu. We have a number of resources. So our funding is for product development and direct service provision. And so the products that we've developed from the beginning of our project have really focused broadly on what are the just-in-time supports and types of information that we want stakeholders to have so that they're moving toward that mission of supporting improved outcomes for students with disabilities. And I'll talk in detail about some of these resources and get your input on some of the things that are happening in your context. So innovation configurations, course enhancement modules, practice-based opportunities, the family guide to at-home learning. Most of these started at the very beginning, but as you know, COVID-19 pushed us into fast forward and thinking about online learning and at-home learning in ways that we hadn't anticipated. And so some of those toolkits were developed in response to both faculty requests and thinking about how to shift internships to virtual placements, but then also how do we support families that were trying to pick up that work. The second column is educator preparation resources. Some of the same resources will show up. They're just organized differently just so that we can help people identify and find where they are on the website right away. High leverage practices for students with disabilities has been a major area of our work that I'll talk a little bit more about. But we have resources there, free downloadable books, reports and briefs that deal with both policy and practice. Our PD packs are compilations of resources that we hope that you'll find useful related to the different topic areas that we've focused on over several weeks or months in our topical action groups. And then the educator and leader preparation are more geared toward higher ed faculty. But I will get into some more detail, but hopefully you will go to our website at CEEDAR.org, that's CEEDAR.org, and check some of these out for yourselves. All right, so I gave you a quick commercial, but now I'll give you a little bit more detail. So the high leverage practices in special education was what we consider a complement to the teaching works high leverage practices that Deborah Ball and her colleagues developed out of the University of Michigan. Our team identified a number of those practices required some more intensity in order to meet the needs of students with disabilities. Some other aspects of collaboration were really important when thinking about service provision, working with interdisciplinary teams, and working with families in the ways that are usually common for students with disabilities. And so the book is available for free download as a PDF. If you want to purchase one, CEC is our partner in that development, the Council for Exceptional Children. You can purchase a hard copy from that website. We also developed a companion website with videos and other resources, and that's highleveragepractices.org. We found that faculty and professional development providers wanted to know, so great, we have the book that gives us a good theoretical conceptual basis. What does that look like? How can we really make this come to life for those that we are either providing instruction for or mentoring? And so On the website, you'll find videos with examples of what those practices look like in real classrooms with real teachers. And so we hope you find that useful. We've also developed a crosswalk because some faculty said, well, we're familiar with the teaching works, high leverage practices. How do these differ or how are they similar? And so we did a crosswalk with the teaching works, high leverage practices, the high leverage practices for students with disabilities, as well as the PSEL standards. So wanted to really emphasize this is what an educational leader might need to know or look for if they're observing in a classroom and expect to see these high leverage practices in action. So we have those resources available. And there's also a leader toolkit that we developed so that if a leader, whether it's a building principal or a mentor of novice teachers, there are resources that help think about how to introduce them, how to provide practice opportunities that we have gotten pretty good feedback on. So then we also heard from faculty, this is great. We've got these innovation configurations. They're essentially rubrics to help us think about where we really strong, where are we providing good information, good practice opportunities in certain content areas. And then here are areas where we really could shore up our coverage. And they said, okay, so we'll go through these, we'll identify priority areas. A number of our teams have used ICs in concert. We call them ICs for short because we love acronyms, you know. So they'll use culturally responsive teaching, and then they'll use the evidence-based practices for English language learners and the disciplinary literacy IC. And so they're thinking about across a program, how are we covering culturally responsive teaching? How are we covering support for English language learners? And how are we doing that within the context of our literacy program, to make sure that we are meeting the intersectional needs of our students with disabilities who might also be English language learners and also from an ethno-racially diverse background. These are documents that include research syntheses to show where the author teams, how they identify what we call essential components for that particular topic area. So faculty were like, this is great. We're using them. One of our favorite examples was going to a team meeting and they said, oh, we've got this covered. We just did a reworking of our program last year. And we said, great, then you're going to be like our shining stars after you complete this IC. And what they found out was having the conversation using the innovation configuration, they were covering the same 3 essential components across the program, but none of the other 5. And so this is an opportunity for faculty to come together and say, hey, these are our priorities. Are we covering them in a way that makes sense and is scaffolding for our students? Or are we making decisions about what we'll cover at an undergraduate level versus what we'll cover at a master's level? And these tools provide a common sort of framework in order to do that. So then faculty said, great, we're having the conversations. We've identified where we want to shore up our work, but who has time to collect all these resources? It'll be a year or 2 before we can get to that. So we said, but wait, we got you covered. Our course enhancement modules are really, they're like resource toolkits to cover specific content. And so we've been working through the most popular of our innovation configurations to then provide professional development resources and tools to help faculty have a starting point for embedding that content in their courses and programs. So I mentioned the professional development packs also have similar resources that can be used. They include PowerPoint presentations. They include tools that faculty have used or developed related to topic areas that we have found important for our teams to move their programs forward. And so those are available on our website. There are videos, there are archived meetings that show teams actually doing the problem solving. Practice-based learning opportunities I mentioned earlier, really thinking about how to support the use of those high leverage practices and what does it mean to give our teachers, our pre-service teachers and leaders authentic learning experiences and how to scaffold that from what they're getting in the classroom or within the textbooks to operationalizing that in their placements. And so the practice-based learning opportunities is a toolkit that is helpful for teaching those HLPs with a structure that faculty might find helpful. All right, so other areas that we've gotten into because we are thinking policy to practice, we have a number of briefs. We have found these helpful, particularly if we're going in to talk to a new dean or to talk to SEA personnel, so the state level people that make decisions about policy. We have these 2 to 3 page briefs that provide information on specific areas to discuss needs. So we have one on shortages. We have this one that I pulled an excerpt from on culturally and linguistically diverse students and meeting their needs. But there are a number of briefs on our website that really just quickly lay out an issue and discuss strategies to address those needs. And so this one I chose to share because this is an area of interest for you all. But that brief might be something that you all want to dig into a little bit deeper. So what might a process look like? If we want to get to really enhancing our coursework, we have to start with a data review. So I'll ask you some questions in a little bit. I'll get you all involved, but we really want our teams to be thinking about what data are we basing these decisions on? Then moving into the innovation configuration analysis. So if we look at our data and we see that our pre-service teachers are doing less well in a given area on EdTPA or whatever assessment that they're taking, or they're getting to a certain point in their coursework and they're having challenges, or they're going into certain school placements and they aren't doing as well, those are all possible data sources that we might identify additional needs within the program. And then we can go to the innovation configuration and look in more detail at what essential components for that particular skill set will look like. Then as a group, set priorities. Like I said, the IC is a way to guide communication and to set priorities, but the priorities are ultimately set by the faculty and the leadership at the institution. What is it that you want your candidates to leave you knowing and able to do when they go into their buildings? What is it that you know from your professional experience that if your teachers graduate and go into the schools in your community, that they really need to have strong skills in? And that might determine how you prioritize what changes you want to make. And then we have some of the course enhancement modules that can help you shore up, beef up, make more robust the way you're covering those. Across the bottom, I included this idea about faculty and staff professional development. It does us no good to do all of the work if we aren't making sure that faculty and staff are prepared to do the work with us. How are they supporting us in doing the revision work? How are faculty prepared to teach different content? If it's something that we're trying to now not only cover culturally responsive practice in one course, but we want to make sure it's also embedded in every course and experience our students take, are all of our faculty prepared to do that? Are our staff also helping us to create an environment that supports that supports culturally responsive interactions, even in the non-classroom spaces? And so I think that's an important component of this reform work, is that we're also thinking about what is it that we need to do in order to be prepared to do this work with and on behalf of our students. All right, so now I'd like for y'all to talk to me either in chat or out loud. What data are you all considering or thinking about related to your DEI priorities and initiatives?
Diversity of faculty, staff, and students. So that would be one or three data items.
Right.
I'm thinking of them as one, but it's just to get everybody started.
Yes, thank you.
I can share. From an instructor point of view, I look at my students, the various key assessments and other assignments that we give, and I'm looking for certain understandings, certain terms, and also an absence of certain, I think, terms and understandings. And that lets me know as an instructor that they are getting it. And it may be a certain type of data, but I found it very valuable.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And Celia Anderson said data on program completers. Can you say more?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we've been trying to wrap our minds around, at least in the secondary education program, which is where I am, is what the impact of the praxis and licensure testing is on the trajectory of our students toward completion. So who is it that's completing in the sort of typical amount of time, who's being stopped by the praxis test. And so I think that in any discussion of DEI, I think looking at, who it is, who's the rates at which people are completing the program and their success is important.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. So I'm hearing diversity in terms of representation among students, staff, and faculty, success of our graduates, looking at any potential disparities and how to address those within the preparation programs, how students are doing within courses. Are they understanding and taking with them the language and ways of being? I'm guessing, Kishana, about the ways we hope they'll approach their work.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Anything else? I feel like you all are hitting different parts of the system within University of Mississippi. Michelle, I went back. University of Memphis. Excuse me.
Yes, Dr. McCray, this is Candy. Yes, University of Memphis. You took us back. Yes, Michelle is on here as well. It's good to see you, Erica.
Hill Clark. Oh, I'm so embarrassed. All right, let me regroup. Dr. Hunter, impact of content on students. You want to say more?
Yes, thinking about one of the courses of teaching, it's the hip hop ed course. It's really, we're in our third semester of doing it, but really gathering data, whether it's qualitative data on the impact of it. I forgot to say teachers also, faculty also, the impact of the content on the faculty and the students of the topics that's discussed within the course.
Absolutely. Hopefully we are changing not only dispositions, but behaviors, right? For the better. I'm curious about how students or your candidates are doing, if you're collecting data on how they're doing in different placements. I know that you all have a number of partnerships and work with partnership schools, and I'm curious about how that has either supported students' understanding and development, or if that is allowing you to identify where there might be some needs.
So I guess that's for me, Erica. And we are collecting, we do a end of year exit survey with the students where we collect information about their experiences and placements. But we also send out a survey to our mentor teachers to get feedback about the students out in the field. We haven't particularly developed one to see how these different placements are impacting our work. And that's probably something I know I can definitely work on to send out in the future, because that is something important that we would want to know. I do know we are working with the SPED faculty. I think we have a meeting next week, if I'm not mistaken, to discuss how to strengthen the placements that we do for our dual certified teacher candidates to make sure that they're getting really strong SPED placements out in the field when they go out, and that they're being placed with strong teachers. So that's one area that we have recognized that we need to improve and strengthen as far as the placements. And we have opened up some of the placements. So traditionally, we've just been in our public school partner systems, but we have opened up to include some charter schools. We have one student teacher out now that's placed at a charter school that is for for students with disabilities, the entire charter school. So we're opening that up some too and exploring different placements.
Can I ask you a follow-up question?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you talk about how you address culturally relevant practice with your mentor teachers? Like, is there specific training, or how are you ensuring that that's like a baseline for your student teachers? We
haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay.
But that is definitely on my radar. Right now, we do two professional development sessions with the mentor teachers. That's on the co-teaching model and the educator's disposition assessment. So culturally responsive is coming. You know it's coming.
Let me know how I can help you with that.
I sure will.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you. All right. So then the next step would be if we were to identify, and a number, like I said, a number of teams are using multiple ICs. The paper-based IC includes the synthesis and then the rubric. And so you can see a screenshot of the culturally responsive teaching IC, and it's just a way to have a conversation looking across a course or program to determine where are these things being addressed. And so the areas in the culturally responsive teaching I see include instructional engagement, culture, language, and racial identity, multicultural awareness, high expectations, critical thinking, and social justice. And you can see from the screenshot, I just took a section out of it. You can see you would be looking across the course. Okay, are we looking at responsive feedback, which would be provide critical, ongoing, and immediate feedback regarding students' responses and participation? Is there no evidence? Is there evidence that it's being measured through a reading, test, lecture, presentation, discussion, modeling, demonstration, or a quiz? Is it doing that plus an observation, project or activity, case study, or lesson plan study? Is it doing all of those things and also including some authentic practice such as tutoring, small group, student teaching, or whole group internship? And so you can see how you might cover responsive feedback in every course, but it might be at different levels. We might expect a first semester course to cover it at level 1. We might expect by the time our students get to internship, they can demonstrate at level 3. And so this is just a great way to document what is happening within a course and across a program. And it provides a focus for conversation about how we want to make adjustments. So I'm curious, what existing structures do you have for continuous improvement that this might be a part of? I know Nichelle mentioned program area meeting, but in what other ways could you see this being a part of the work that you're already doing? Because nobody wants another meeting.
Well, from my standpoint, I could see not everybody is even comfortable with culturally relevant topics, and it's the awareness, but also looking at where that's occurring throughout the curriculum, throughout the college. That would be one method that I could see using the information.
Absolutely. One of the things that we've also done, wearing one of my other hats, is include on our departmental faculty meetings some discussion topic of how we're considering issues of equity within our programs. And that we put that on the faculty meeting agenda as something we wanted to discuss. Faculty could bring in specific issues they were trying to figure out how to handle, specific content areas they were trying to address related to that. And so just really thinking about what are the reasons that you already get together and to make this a part of the work. Same thing with, even if you have a standalone course where it's a really robust coverage of culturally responsive practice, how are we looking across the program to make sure that it's not just the one faculty member trying to address everything?
Yeah.
Because that also creates issues for faculty of color who are typically the ones teaching course content related to diversity, those that are pre-tenure. So it's groups that are typically more vulnerable or not even full-time faculty. And so really thinking intentionally about how do we as an organization, as an academic community, move this work forward in a concerted way so that students realize this is a priority for us. All right, and so I mentioned the course enhancement modules. And this was a labor of love. I'm not going to lie to you. Pulling together the course enhancement modules was a lot of intentional effort on behalf of faculty and our state teams to pull together resources that a faculty member or professional development provider could use right away. And so each one has a background statement that sort of gives some baseline information or overview information. Each one also has learning resources. And I'll actually go to it if you give me just a second. But we put together PowerPoint presentations with discussion notes, just so that if someone were really just trying to get a handle on how to do this, they could pick it up and feel like they were getting the professional development as they were doing it. So let me change my share. Okay. So if you go to the CEEDAR website, go to resources and tools, and then course enhancement modules, and we have them on different content areas. So please feel free to take a look. But I'll dig into the culturally relevant education. So each one has this overview. Then we move into the learning resources. This one is organized in 3 parts. It's an overview and background information on culturally relevant education. We give definitions to terms. We've embedded some videos and activities. There's a PowerPoint. The facilitation guide gives talking points for each of the slides in the PowerPoint. We have handouts and readings related to what's included in the PowerPoint. The second one layers culturally relevant education in the content areas. And so same thing, content area PowerPoint, facilitation guide, handouts and references, because we don't want faculty to see this as something that the person who's interested in diversity does. We wanted it to be really clear and explicit that we should be talking about culturally relevant education when we're talking about literacy, when we're talking about math, when we're talking about behavior. This is something that should be showing up to improve how our students are taught and how they learn, regardless of the content area or context. So from there, we pulled out multimedia. Some of these are embedded within the PowerPoint, but if you knew you had a topic and you wanted to identify really quickly, what's a video that I can use to introduce this topic, or a video I can use to have my students react to, we've got a page with multimedia resources. We have modified the presentations for courses that can be used in part to be professional development outlines geared more toward practicing teachers and leaders. We also have some sample syllabi and a process that one of our institutions used to do the things that I'm talking about. They set up professional development opportunities for the faculty, specific opportunities for the students, as well as going through the course review and revision process. And then the references and resources just directs you back to the learning resources page. But I hope you all will take a look. We have put a lot of thought and effort into putting things together so that when faculty use our innovation configurations, they feel like they can immediately start making changes with the resources that we've put together. All right, so just to give you a recap on some of the websites that I've mentioned, CEEDAR.org is where we just were. You can download anything there for free and share it broadly. And highleveragepractices.org, I mentioned, is where you can download the additional high leverage practices, resources and videos are available there. And then I didn't talk as much about our partnership with CCSSO, but a number of the inclusive principal leadership work is housed on that website, the CCSSO Inclusive Principles Guide. So I also wanted to highlight the team that we have been working with in Tennessee has focused on these major areas: educator shortages, high leverage practices and evidence-based practices, and really honing in on the partnership agreements. And so through this, they have embedded HLPs across and have also looked at culturally responsive teaching across. And so hopefully, again, this is work that you all will see as important and valuable and see how it fits into the work that you all are already doing. And then I left time for questions and discussion.